Welcome to the Bad Girls on Business, the podcast that makes business more fun so you want to do more of it. Here are your hostesses with the mostesses, Jenny Bellinger, Virginia Muskies, and Michelle Nedelec.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Bad Girls on Business. We are the only podcast out there that is sane and consensual. We'll be as nice, naughty, or as kinky as our guests like, and we'll even give you a safe word. It's meatloaf because we do anything for business, but we won't do that. And I'm Virginia Muskies, the referral diva, changing the world one referral at a time. And I'm here with my co-hosts, starting with Jenny Bellinger.
Yes, I'm Jenny Bellinger, also known as the Direct Sales Dom, helping you whip your business into shape. And we also have with us Michelle Nedelec.
I'm Michelle Nedelec. I'm your mistress in business, helping you get it up and keeping it up. Of course, we're talking about revenue and profit. Back to you, Virginia.
Thanks, Michelle and Jenny. And we are really blessed today with this amazing guest that I met through Angel B. Hartwell, formerly Emerald Peaceful Green Forest, formerly Amethyst Wildfire. And I don't know who she was before that, but you do know that she is a brilliant marketer and she's a really magnificent gal. And our guest today is Lynda Sunshine West. She ran away at 5 years old and was gone for an entire week, came home riddled with fears and became a people pleaser. At 51, she faced one fear every day for a year, and in doing so, gained a lot of confidence and uses what she learned to fulfill her mission of empowering 5 million people to share their stories with the world and make a greater impact on the planet. Lynda is the founder and CEO of Action Takers Publishing, a speaker. She is a 15 times #1 international best-selling author, an executive film producer, and a red carpet interviewer. Lynda believes that we all have a story to tell, and there are people out there waiting for us to tell it. We make our greatest connections through our stories, and it's our relation points that create our relationships. Time to put pen and paper and share your story with the world to make a greater impact on the planet. Welcome, Lynda Sunshine West.
Thank you so much for having me. As I was hearing you guys introduce yourself, I'm sitting here thinking, my title's kind of boring. Like, I got to come up with something different. So I'm going to work on that. Not right now, but I'm excited to work on that.
Well, let us get kinky, Lynda. We might be able to help you out with that.
I know.
Business kink all the way, right?
Okay, open up the kink. Open up the kink, Virginia.
So, there you go. Lynda, so really quick, talk about this running away when you were 5. I think we all ran away when we were 5, but we didn't stay away for 7 days. So, talk about that just to get started.
Yeah, it's, when I was 5, I was growing up in a very volatile, abusive, alcoholic household. I was child number 4 of 5. And I guess at 5, I just decided this isn't a place I want to live. So I ran away. I just went to the neighbor's house. But for all intents and purposes, me as a 5-year-old, I was running away forever. 7 days is a long time when you're 5. And something happened during that time that I was gone that I didn't know how it was going to affect my life in the future. But what happened was when I came home, my mom did know where I was, by the way, and she never came to get me. So what happened in my little 5-year-old brain locked in tight that they don't love me. They don't want me around. Nobody came to get me. And I truly believed that for decades to come. So when I came home, my mom brought me home and I ended up just, becoming a people pleaser because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't the reason that Dad was mad. So I always walked around with this on eggshells. And then also, I just had so many fears and it started way back then. So that's my 5-year-old running away story.
That is incredibly powerful. And I can see how that would impact everything in your life. In every aspect, because, to be obviously 5-year-olds, they know what they want and what they don't want, but not many of us are willing to go after it in that way, right? To be able to say, I don't want this and go live somewhere else for 7 days, which you're right, that does feel forever to a 5-year-old.
Oh, that feels forever to me and I'm 57.
I know, right? You want me to be healthy for a week? Damn. But no. So having that impact you, not just about the people pleasing part, but I imagine that there was a lot of that informed how you showed up in the world outside of the people pleasing. How else did that inform your way of being in the world until you faced your fears?
Yeah, it really did. One thing I realized as I looked back on my past is that that was the start of a pattern. And that was like that running away pattern. And, when I was younger, in like, say, 7, 8, 9 years old, I would do things like, join brownies and then quit after a week. Or I was on the border patrol, but the guard crossing or whatever it's called, I was on that and I was only on there for like 2 weeks. And then I did this for everything I did was for a very, very short period of time. Like I had 49 jobs in 36 years. So that's a lot of what I termed as running away. But then as I started looking back at it, I was like, maybe I was never running away from anything. I was running to something better. So I started like to change, my own mindset. It's like, I didn't run away, really. I was actually running to something better, which changing that way I saw that helped me to move forward faster in the things I'm doing now, because, no longer letting my fear of something stop me or hold me back, but instead using my fear as fuel to move me forward. And so it's been a journey, to say the least, this whole journey of, going from that place of, that child who was terrified to be in the environment, to make a decision like, I'm not going to put up with this. And I decided to move, and then coming back and, really settling into that. Okay, I guess that didn't work out too well. I'm just going to go ahead and hide for the next decades to come.
Well, I'd like to personally congratulate you on your tenacity, because I think that's very bold and audacious and fantastical of that younger you to go and just take on the world. It's like, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. And now I like to tap into that. Usually I'll have a screen on behind me that's this little girl in a cape. And it's to remind me that at 5 years old, I did that. And I'm still that 5-year-old. I'm still that 5-year-old, strong, brave, courageous, bodacious, and all of that. And sometimes I have to be reminded to go ahead and go do it. Now I do things because I'm scared, because I know the result I'm going to get later from breaking through fears is going to be a benefit to me. So it's, again, it's just changing my mindset and the way I see things.
You said in your bio, right, that you made this decision to face a fear each and every day for 365 days. So I have a couple of questions about that. Like, number one, I'm probably have them, but like, how did you come up with that? Because if you ask me right now to make a list of 365 things I'm afraid of, I would be like, I'm not afraid of nothing. Like, you know what I mean? I'm afraid of colonoscopies, but that was a different episode. So, so, you know what I'm saying? So talk a little bit about that, the decision to face your fears, the process you use in choosing your fears or out, like, how did you do that?
Yeah, the big old how, right? Well, first, I think the first question to answer there is why. Like, why did I decide to even do that? And, in 2014, I had this epiphany that as I was driving to work, my 49th job, I was working for a judge in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. I had been a legal secretary for 20 years, many jobs. And I worked my way up to the penultimate, like, this is the job. I was so excited. And after a good 15 months, like, oh God, this is such a boring job. And I just hated my life, and I was driving to work and stuck in the traffic that I had been stuck in for 36 years, every day, Monday through Friday, just in that hamster wheel. And I was just pounding my hands on the steering wheel, boom, boom, boom. Like, what? I don't understand. Like, what is this planet about? This is so ridiculous. I just hate my job. I hate my life. And I was in this really dark space, mentally speaking. And then I just started asking, what's my purpose? I have no purpose here. All I do is push papers around for a judge. I was just so angry. So when I got to work that day, there was a Facebook post. I'm a life coach. I took some time off. I'm getting back into it. I'm looking for 5 women who want to change their lives. And I was like, I want to change my life. And so I just raised my hand. I had no idea what a life coach was, what it meant, but I knew I wanted to change my life. So I raised my hand and I worked with her for 5 months. And it was, like the most eye-opening thing for me, that I went from this negative person who didn't believe in herself, because nobody in my childhood believed in me. My first husband didn't believe in me. He told me I was stupid and ignorant, so he must be right. These are things I played in my head for decades. And she helped me to see that I actually am a smart woman. I'm nice, I'm considerate, and people like me because they like me, not because they feel sorry for me. And so I worked with her for 5 months. And at the end of the 5 months, my time was up. And I'd like, this is awesome. I got this. Well, December came of 2014 and I was by myself. I didn't make nearly as much growth as I had with working with her. So January 1st, 2015, I woke up that morning and I said, I got to do something different because I got addicted to positivity, something I'd never experienced in my life. And I wanted to keep it going. So I was like, oh my gosh, I have so many fears. Fears are stopping me from living my life. I'm going to break through a fear every day this year. Like that was exactly how it happened. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what the fears were going to be, but I decided that every morning for 365 days, I'm going to wake up and the very first thing I'm going to do before I get out of bed is I'm going to ask myself a simple question. What scares me? And then I'm going to lay in bed and I'm going to wait until the first fear pops into my head. Sometimes it was instant and sometimes it was 10 or 15 minutes, but that was my thing. I'm going to wait here until it pops in. And so that's how it all got started. And that day, my commitment was that day I had to break through that fear, no matter what it was, because I can't stack them up, because otherwise it'd just be way too scary. So every day I did this and it was, oh my gosh, just transformational. It was the biggest year of my entire life. And I have moved into so many things that I never imagined I would do. Because I always saw, people interviewing stars on the red carpet. That's for those people, becoming a best-selling author. That's for those people. That was my belief. And now I've become those people. And so it's kind of cool. It's like how it's transformed me into those people that I always looked up to and never thought I could be.
So I'm curious around the 365 fears. What are some of the interesting ones that popped up for you in that year that maybe before you ever asked yourself that question, you didn't realize you were scared of?
Oh gosh, so many of them. But the ones that really, really stuck out the most to me were the ones that were very specific. For example, talking to a stranger in a Starbucks. Like that was my fear. And so that day I had to go to Starbucks, wait for a stranger to walk in, sit down and go talk to them. And it took about 10 minutes for because it was a stranger. I'm very literal. It was a stranger. It couldn't be a group of people. So there was one guy walks in and I'm like, okay, there he is. Hopefully he'll sit down. Because if he sits down, then he's my victim. Right. And so he sat down and I stood there just like, I was a nervous ball of, just a big ball of nerves. And I walked over to him. I said, excuse me, sir, I'm breaking through a fear every day this year. And today's fear is talk to a stranger in a Starbucks. He's like, okay, weirdo. Yeah. Okay. Hey, do you mind if I have a seat? And he said, yeah, go ahead. So I sat down. We talked for about 5 minutes. I got up and thanked him for his time. I walked out and I felt like throwing up, but I did it. And so they were all like simple, what might seem simple to someone else. And this is I had a lot of epiphanies that year. One of those was that no matter how simple a fear may be to someone, it may be extremely difficult for someone else. And I was that person. I had literally was riddled with fears about talking to people, going to a networking event. I remember I used to drive to networking events and I would sit in my car, get on Facebook and then not go in and then drive home. Like I would never even go inside because I was so scared to talk to people. And so that was a fear that came up frequently. Okay, you're going to a networking event. You're going to start a conversation. Like that was a big fear for me. So for me to even be here today, talking here or, doing videos, the red carpet interviews, all these different things I'm doing today were all things that I was scared to do. And I realized that it was because my fear of judgment. And that was about 6 months into it. I was like, what's the common theme here? I think they all relate to fear of judgment. So what was cool about that is now I had awareness. And now I could actually tackle that fear of judgment specifically. And that's what I did the next 6 months. So I no longer have fear of judgment. It's like a completely different world has been opened to me.
Nice. I love it. So how does that translate still today? How did that make you decide that, hey, I'm going to do this for a living?
Yeah, it didn't really translate that way, because it's all a journey, right? So I became an entrepreneur in 2015 when I decided to leave that job working for that judge. And I had been told that you can become a millionaire in a year as an entrepreneur. Well, that didn't happen, but I believed it would happen. So I made this leap. And my husband and I, we ended up selling my childhood home, and we banked that money and we're living off of it to, so I could become this rich entrepreneur. And first thing we did is after selling that home, we also sold 85% of our belongings, and we downsized to a 28-foot fifth wheel trailer, got rid of all that stuff. And we became park hosts at a local park in San Diego County. So here we were like living off the county, really, because all of our stuff was from them besides our food. And we made this decision so that I could follow this dream and passion of helping people. And then everybody was like, well, what are you going to do to make money? I'm like, I don't know. I just know. Again, it was a running away, or was it running to something, right? So it's like I had to start looking at that. And it's been morphing into so many different business ideas. And my very first, I hosted an event called Lemon Zest and Garlic Fest in July of 2015. I ended up losing $70,000 at that one event. But at the end of the day, I said, okay, what did I do wrong? What could I do better next time? And I didn't quit and give up. I kept going because I know, like, I have this inner knowing that I'm supposed to be doing this. And so that's what really has kept me going, is figuring that out. What does that mean? What is this? And what is it going to mean for me? And how am I going to make money doing this? And so it actually ended up morphing itself in 7.5 years of doing this. I'm trying to figure it out, is what moved me into the book publishing space. I had been doing it for fun, like, you ladies doing this podcast, right? For fun. It's got to be fun. If it's not fun, I ain't doing it. And so it just kind of culminated into that. I'm not only having fun doing this, I'm damn good at it, and I can make money doing this. And that's kind of like what moved me into that space.
So that translation of going from not a business to now book publisher, right? What were some of the obstacles that you had to deal with in becoming a book publisher who had never published a book before? Because there had to be a few.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the biggest hurdle throughout this whole journey, it's been 8 years now since I, left that corporate job, has been the money mindset. Oh my God. Like, when you work for people and a paycheck comes in every week or every month or whatever, that's steady. And while it might not be great money for all the jobs, it might not be great, but it's steady. And I got so used to that. And so I really thought that money would just flow in. That did not happen. But I realized later that it was because of my own money mindset. Money doesn't grow on trees. Find a penny, pick it up. Be a penny pincher. Put all the money in your bank. All eggs in one basket, and all these things that, we grew up with as kids. And for me to move into the money space, that first of all, I deserve it. That was the biggest one, just deserving. And I realized that I'm terrible at sales, and it's because I don't like sales. And I decided instead that I'm going to have people buy from me because it feels good, because they want to buy from me. And that's awesome. Right? So the money one is the biggest by far. I was terrified. I was so terrified to ask for money that I would sit there and they'd say, okay, make out your packages. And I make out my packages. I had my pricing. I had all my list of everything. And then let's say something was, for example, let's say $500. Then when it came time to make the sale, they would say, oh, how much is it? I'd say $50. Like I would just shoot the price down because I was too scared for them to say no.
That whole pricing issue is so interesting. It's something that I coach people on. I know Jenny does and Michelle does as well. The idea that, your value, and then sometimes it's so hard to spit it out. And so my coaching around that has become check your bias. So that's my new euphemism, ladies, for that's such bullshit. You know how I used to say that? I'd be like, oh my God, that is such bullshit. Why is that in your head? I'm like, okay, that wasn't working very well as a coach. So I started thinking, okay, well, what is it that we need to do? It's not that I know it's bullshit. It's that, can you allow yourself to tell yourself that is not an accurate view of the situation? And so I started saying, check your biases, which is throw it out there. And if they say, say, well, what could you do? And then they give you a number back. And then you say, well, I could do it for that. If you could agree to write a recommendation on LinkedIn, do a video testimonial, do a live stream about our experience on your Facebook page, whatever. I could do it for that if you'd be willing to also do this other thing that's valuable to me. And the more I've coached people on that, it's been really interesting how much easier it is. And the very first time somebody said, well, it's $2,500. And someone replied, is that all? They were like, oh my God, okay, what? Yes, that's all. Yes.
You're like, darn, I should have asked for more.
Unless you'd like to pay more. So I'd be happy to pay what you can. And my minimum is $2,500, like, but yeah, that money mindset of being able to ask for it is so big in entrepreneurs. So big.
Yeah. It was interesting for me too. And I love what you say, in exchange for, that's a great ad. But what was interesting for me is that as I was making it through these different money mindset issues that I had that had been, holding on to, I'd been holding on to them for so many decades, that I, though, on the other side, I was buying things. I'll just throw money at it, because if I throw money at it, then it's going to make me money. It didn't work that way, but that was where my mind was like, I need to buy this. I need to buy that. But I wasn't willing to ask for anybody to buy anything from me. So it was never going to work that way.
That just hurt my heart, because it's what I've been there, but it's the most prevalent attitude out in the entrepreneurship scene today, in the online course creation, in the speak to sell, in the, really online marketing. Everything I'm seeing is exactly that. People throwing money and never asking to get anything of value in return. So.
Yeah. Oh, it's part of it too. I think, I'm not sure, and this is kind of something to think about, is that I think part of it was due to that people pleaser attitude that I was living in, because I wanted to please them. And so I would buy it. And then I started realizing that sometimes I feel gross the next day, but mad at myself. Like, why did I do that again? Why did I allow myself to do that again? I would just get so mad at myself. And so what I created this last year is my own mantra. And that is that if I won't pay full price tomorrow, why would I pay half price today? And that really helps me to not make a split decision like in the moment. Instead is to evaluate, like, if I'm willing to pay full price, then that's okay. I'll pay half price, But yeah, if I'm not willing to do that, why am I willing to pay half price?
That's powerful, because the investment that we sometimes are not willing to make in ourselves, right? When we're looking at our own programs for our own growth, right? Because, I'm going through this right now, looking at where are the holes and the cracks where stuff's falling through in my own business. And it's like, okay, where am I going to invest? Where do I need, help? Where are those things coming in? And, it's been interesting going, okay, I'm having conversations with different people who do, quote unquote, I'm putting air quotes around this, the same thing, right? So how do I pick? How do I, and it's really going with, who do I think can really solve the problem, right? And because if I'm going to invest, they better frickin' solve the problem.
Yeah.
So thank you, because that makes a lot of sense to me now, and it's hitting me where I am in the moment. So thank you.
And what's so interesting as well, just about that, Lynda, and you and I chatted because Lynda and I got together because Angel is doing a collaboration with her for Wickedly Smart Women. And so the interesting thing about all of this is like, okay, well, if you're going to do it, if you're going to put in the time, the money, the effort, the energy to do anything, whether that's contribute a book chapter, whether that's create a lead magnet, whether that's, make an Infusionsoft campaign, whatever that is, right? Does it actually solve a problem? Like, is it for a purpose? Does it solve your most immediate problems? And so I think that's so valuable to think about it is like, okay, and also is the price of this thing, like, is the investment in this thing an investment that will solve the problem and open up a new doorway or create a new path for success in that? It's not only would I be willing to pay full price, but will it actually solve my problem and give me that ROI is so incredibly.
Yeah, that would have been a great question for me to know 8 years ago.
Me too. Me too. It was really interesting because I just did an event and I made an offer and I said, if you want to continue to work with us and be part of our alliance, it would be great to have you and everything. And one of the key offers the elements of the offer that actually somebody actually bought my offer on this one thing. It was, you never buy another coach. Take this program and never invest in another coach without running it by me. And then we'll determine whether or not, like, what's your top of mind problem? Where are you in the process? Do you really need a coach? Is there someone in the community who could back you up? Because that's a 1-hour conversation that anyone would be willing to help you with. Do you really need it? Whatever. And somebody signed up and was like, if this is the last money that I ever waste, like, this is going to be really great. Like, sort of like, if you do nothing but make sure I don't waste any more money, this investment will be a savings.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
So,
and it's because like all the hype out there and everything. And I don't know, for me, I felt like I was regretting a lot of my purchases, and I didn't want, to me, that's disempowerment. And I love it. That's why I like to say, I want people to buy from me, and I don't ever want to sell to anybody, because I want them to buy what they want and need, but I don't want to convince them that they want and need it, because maybe they do want and maybe they do need it, but I don't want to convince them that. I want them to come to that realization, because I went through 7.5 years of allowing that to happen. And I felt, like I regretted some of those decisions, and I don't like to have regret, So yeah, that's where I am.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more from a selling perspective, because I think when somebody sells a client that needs your stuff but doesn't want it, your entire relationship with them is still convincing them and or trying to push a rope, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's no fun for anybody.
Right?
Anybody, yeah.
When it comes to the products and the services you're now offering, like, who are your favorite clients? Who do you love working with, and how does that relationship go down?
Yeah, it's interesting. That was, again, another one of those trying to figure that out. Because, at the beginning, a lot of times we're like, oh, I can help everybody. I can save the whole world, right? And then I had to narrow down, and it just took so many years for me to get there. The company name is Action Takers Publishing, because that's who I want to work with. Like, I thought because myself, I had spent so many years being a starter and not a finisher. And this was, again, another realization that I had later on in life. My dad started all his projects and my mom finished all his projects, but I didn't have my mom to finish my projects. So I would start a lot of projects and they would not get finished. And so I had that realization that, wow, this is what I'm doing. I'm repeating what my dad did. I want to become a finisher too. So what I did is I created Action Takers. It was called Women Action Takers at the beginning, but I created that because I wanted to be surrounded by other action takers, so that I would start to learn their habits and their behaviors. And I became that person, the person who now starts and finishes. And it's, totally changed, who I am. But I realized too that I used to be around what I call a lot of excuse makers, right? And so I had all these clients that were excuse makers. They wouldn't take the action. And it was because they were probably emulating a lot about me. I was bringing into my sphere of influence who I was. And I decided I wanted to become a different person. And so I went on that journey to become a different person. And now I'm attracting action takers. So it's really cool because by naming it Action Takers Publishing, it's attracting action takers to it. And so that's who I love to be surrounded by, because I want them to share their story, but they got to take the action to do it. So that's my main target, is those people who are taking action, because they inspire me to keep going also. Every day I wake up and there's a potential to quit. Not everything is going the way I planned. Not everything is going the way I thought it would be by now, and all those things. But I just keep going because I know that the result is going to be way better than I ever imagined in my own little head. And I'm looking forward to those days. But then by the time I get there, my mind will already be on to the next thing, the next level, not the next thing, but the next level.
Right. So share with us, if you will, some of your most fun clients, whether it was the books that they were writing or the experiences that you had with them. What were some of the more fun ones?
Oh, yeah. You say fun. It's fun for me, but maybe not fun for her. There was one of my clients, she decided to join us in one of our collaboration books. And that book is called Invisible No More, Invincible Forevermore. So these were women sharing their stories of going from feeling invisible to feeling invincible. And so when they starting their stories and writing them out, that place of invisibility, a lot of times it would pop up to them in these tremendous emotional, releases. And her name is Dolores. And she was sharing with me, like, I'm kind of scared to publish my chapter. Like, I was just bawling my eyes out writing it. And I don't know if I really want to put it out there into the world. And she ended up going ahead and submitting her chapter. And she said that me writing my story, that part of my story that I had never told anybody before, that was so healing. And I'm so glad I did it. you, Lynda, are doing more than just publishing books. You are helping people to transform their lives. And that was like, whoa, this is it for me. I knew I was in the right thing then.
Nice. I love it. That is awesome. So when you're going through the process of helping somebody write the book, do they already have an idea? Do they already know what they're going to do? How do you work that?
The people who come to me so far, they already have an idea in mind. And then what I do is I hop on a call with them to make sure that it's going to help them to generate ROI, right? Because a lot of people say, you need to write a book, you need to write a book. But then they start to want to write a book, but they don't know why they're doing it. So for me as a book publisher, I don't want to just publish books. I want the book to have a purpose. I was on a call with a woman the other day as she was talking to me about her book. I said, you don't really need to write and publish a book. An ebook would be good for what you're doing. And because I don't want to steer people the wrong way, and I'm not here to take people's money. I'm here to transform people's lives. And so really hearing what they want to do with it is important for me because I have to remain in integrity with everything I do. And so a lot of them come with an idea, and I'm able to help them kind of tweak it in a way so they can see how they can generate revenue on the back end of it. Like my current client, we're publishing her book June 21st of 2022 when you're listening to this. And she had an idea and we tweaked it completely in a way that it would work to generate clients for her through the people who are reading the book. And so that's what I love to help people do, to help them to make money with their book too,
I love it. And I assume as well that depending on somebody's clientele, they may not be readers. So,
right.
It makes more sense to have an ebook if somebody's not going to pick up a 600-page book and start chowing down on it.
Oh, that's a big book.
Yeah, right.
I think Lynda's books are a little smaller than that, but anyway, it's like War and Peace. No, phew, that's crazy. So what's been you've got a lot of bestsellers. So what's been your favorite compilation so far?
Oh gosh, that's a great question.
I'm asking her to decide which of the babies is cuter. So I'm like,
Exactly. Well, I would actually have to say the first one. And the reason, it's not as much about the book itself, but what it did for me. See, I was in a collaboration book in 2015 when I was breaking through those fears every day. I ended up joining a collaboration book. And that was scary for me because my words were going to be on paper for the first time in my life. But I did it. It was called Footsteps of the Fearless. My mentor was doing it. I was breaking through a fear. It fit because Footsteps of the Fearless. And so after that year was over, 2016, my mentor was like, hey, that's really cool that you broke through a fear every day, but what are you going to do about it? And I'm like, I think that's plenty. I don't need to do anymore. And he says, no, you need to write a book because who has broken through a fear every day for a year? You can really help a lot of people with that book. So I did. I started it. I was still a starter at that time. Started it for a year and a half and then finally finished it after a year and a half. And then after that, I asked myself a question that I love to ask myself now. And that is, what's my next natural state of progression? I was in a collaboration book. I wrote my own book. I'm going to start writing my own collaboration books. So I reached out to a couple people I know. The founder of UGG Boots is a friend of mine. The creator of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, who recently passed away, a friend of mine, and the inventor of the credit card magnetic strip. And they're all friends of mine. And I said, hey, I'm thinking of writing a book called Momentum, 13 Lessons from Action Takers Who Changed the World. Will you be in my book? All three of them said, yeah, of course. Just tell me what I need to do. And I was like, oh crap, now I got to write a book. I had no idea what I was doing, but they all said yes. So I went on this journey to fill that book. And what that did for me is, first of all, as we talked about money earlier, I had to ask for money. People had to pay to help me to do this book. I hired a ghostwriter. It was going to cost, about $25,000. So I had to raise the money. And that right there was a big, big epiphany for me because I was able to now start asking for the sale, or invite people to buy from me and to move into that completely different headspace. And that was really, for me, that was the instrument that helped me to do that. So that's the one I'd have to pick. But then I'd also, no, just
then there's the second one. And then the third one was really
exactly.
And the fourth one. Right.
Well, it's interesting, though. These titles come to me, and I believe God sends me these titles for a certain reason that I get to decide what I'm going to do with them. So Momentum was the first. And then the next two were called The Fearless Entrepreneurs and invisible no more, invincible forevermore. These were all my story. I wanted to see, are there other people that have the same or similar story as me? And let's tell those. And so I was able to tell my story by inviting other people to tell their similar stories as well.
It sounds like it's just, to me, it does sound very therapeutic, not just from the standpoint of you get your story out on the page, right? But then you're part of this collaboration and suddenly you're part of a community of people who had the same experience, right?
Yes.
Maybe their story is different, but when you say like fear of judgment, okay, great. Well, we all have that. So when you are part of saying, this is how my fear of judgment like played in my life, right? This is how I conquered it, whatever. But it all comes from that shared experience. And that shared experience is what actually creates community. And we all know that, they say addiction isn't only chemical. It is actually like caused by isolation, right? So it is addictions and suicide and depression and all of those things are really about not having community and not having shared experiences and not being validated in the experiences that we have. So it seems like in each one of these books, there is a validation point for both the writers and for the readers.
Definitely. And I love that you mentioned that word community because it's one of my essence words. Like my life coach, she had me go through this exercise so I could discover what my essence is, my true essence. And community was that number one word. I love building communities and bringing people together. And it's probably because I needed to build that for myself, right? I needed to build that positivity. I needed to build a safe environment where I wouldn't feel judged. And so I was creating a judgment-free safe zone. Like I've always been doing that. And, just having those people that are like-minded, I like to actually hang out with higher-minded. Doesn't mean they're smart or anything, that they're just thinking differently than I am and I can learn from them and grow. So, but anyway, hanging out with those people who have a, similar type of story that we get it. That's that our relation points create our relationships. And that's where that came from when I came up with that saying, because it's through us sharing our stories. And then you're like, oh, I can totally relate to that. And that's how we start our conversations and we start our relationships from that.
So cool. So guys, I think we're kind of coming up on our time here. And I don't know, Michelle, do you got something else you wanted to ask? You just made, no one can see the cute little face that you just made. So what you got?
No, it's good.
I'm just going, we're over already.
I know, right?
So fast when I'm doing these. I'm just like, we just started 5 minutes ago. What are you talking about?
I know. It's crazy. It's crazy. So Lynda, do you have any last words of wisdom that you would like to share with our listener? And how can we get a hold of you? How can people get a hold of you?
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. One thing I'd like to share is, because this is something I learned really, really big during that year, breaking through fears every single day. I learned so many different things. But one of the things I learned that I really tap into all the time now is that faith erases anxious reactions. That's my acronym for fear. And that's faith erases anxious reactions. Because when our faith is strong, our fear is weak. And when our fear is strong, it means our faith is weak. So what I do is a lot of times when I having a fearful moment, I'll ask myself, how strong is my faith right now? Now, it's not just faith in like God or higher power, whatever you believe in, but also faith in your community, faith in those people who are in your circle who got your back, and then also faith in yourself. So I ask myself, how strong is my faith in those three areas? And it helps me to kind of like switch turn off the switch of fear and turn on the switch of faith. So faith erases anxious reactions. That's my favorite. I'm working on my TED Talk right now, so I'm going to be talking about that too. So excited. I have so much fun stuff going on. I can't believe it. It's like
the woman who couldn't tell her story is now going to stand on a TED stage. That's pretty hot.
That's awesome.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's just so much fun. But you can find me at actiontakerspublishing.com. Just go there, check us out. We have some free downloads there. If you're thinking of writing a book, sharing your story, we have some free downloads that can help you out with that. And I just love connecting with people and hearing their stories. That's what really, storytelling has been around since the very beginning of time. And I think a lot of people have lost sight of that. And it's time to tap back into it.
Nice. I love it. Congratulations. And totally looking forward to the TED Talk too.
Yeah, me too. That's for those people, and I'm becoming those people.
Yeah, right.
You know what's really cool about those people?
What?
They have legs and arms and they put their pants on one leg at a time and they brush their teeth in the morning, most of them. And, so It's pretty cool when you find out that those people are people.
Just people. Yeah.
I love it. So, yeah, absolutely. Lynda, we have some fun questions for you, if you don't mind. They're a little on the distasteful side, but I'm sure you'll clean them up quite nicely.
Okay, I'm ready.
When it comes to your marketing, do you prefer domination or seduction?
Oh, gosh. Domination.
Domination.
Yes.
Yes. The answer to the question is yes.
Awesome. When it comes to networking, are you an exhibitionist or a voyeur?
Oh, I'm an exhibitionist all the way.
Nice. And when it comes to your business leadership, are you a lady dom or a power sub?
Oh, gosh. I think I'm in between. I'll say a lady dom.
We'll discuss this afterwards. When it comes to your team, do you prefer being married or having mistresses?
Married.
Awesome. And when it comes to entrepreneurship, are you all for monogamy or polyamory?
Monogamy.
Awesome. Thank you for playing with me. I appreciate it.
A little edgy, but fun. So.
It's mostly fun to get people to think differently about their own business, right? Because every time our listener hears those questions too, they think they know what they want until they hear the question asked again and what the answer somebody gives, right? It's really interesting. So, but Lynda, we really want to thank you for being here. And our listener already now knows, go to the show notes. Our regular listeners know that. If this is the first time that you are hearing Bad Girls on Business and you have no idea what show notes are, all you have to do is grab your phone, as long as you're not driving, click on today's episode and you'll scroll up just a little bit and you'll see all of Lynda's contact information where you can reach out to her, including her website, to be able to reach out and have that conversation, maybe about the book or compilation that you want to put together to become an international best-selling author, action-taking international best-selling author. So make sure you grab that contact information, reach out to Lynda, and of course, go check out badgirlsonbusiness.com to connect with the mistress in business, the direct sales dom, or the referral diva, or frankly, all three of us, because we're into that. So please make sure that you go check that out. That makes me laugh because, the other two hosts are now giggling behind their microphones and muted and everything. So we love having you all here, and stay tuned because there is another badass episode on its way.
Thank you for listening to the Bad Girls on Business podcast. Don't forget to check the show notes for any links mentioned in this episode and for additional contact information about the guest or our hostesses. If this show got you going, we'd love to hear about it when you subscribe, rate, and review the show on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Can't get enough of the direct sales dom, the referral diva, or your mistress in business? The Bad Girls have hidden their gift for you at badgirlsonbusiness.com. When you find the Easter egg, use the password BGOB to unlock your treasure chest of goodies.